This is The Chris Berry Show. Expert information on elder law, retirement, and estate planning. Information that you can understand. Here's your host, Chris Berry.
And welcome to The Chris Berry Show, where we talk wealth, estate, and tax planning for the second half of life. And I want to welcome our listeners this week. And each week we start with a positive focus, something positive that happened during the last week. It's something that we always start our dinners with family, going around the table. Everyone shares something positive that happened during the day. And so on the Chris Berry Show, we wanted to talk about a positive focus that happened for this past week. And for me this past week, my positive focus was with the kids going back to school. One of the things that I want to do was have a day where I just spent it with the kids during the week. And so I was able to take Monday off, and I had a daddy-daughter day, which was great because I had a Ryan and Dad day. My son's name is Ryan. So we already had a day previous week. So this week I got to spend Monday with my daughter, Madison. She's age 5. And she's going into kindergarten. She's pretty excited about that. But before she goes back to school during the week, I wanted to take a day and just spend it with her. And so that's my positive focus, was spending a day with my daughter and let her pick all the activities. So we started off by going to Potter Park Zoo in Lansing. A lot of times we spend time at the Detroit Zoo, which is great. But Potter Park Zoo, it's nice. It's a little bit smaller, able to walk around, see everything. And there's a couple little activities for the kids. She was able to ride a horse, which she loved. And then they have a little kind of bungee jumping type thing where they strap her into these bands and she can jump on a trampoline. She really enjoyed that. And she was able to see her favorite animal, which was a rhino. So she was able to see the rhinos, and that was her favorite animal at the zoo. So it was great to spend time doing that. And then we still had some time left in the day. So from there, we were able to go bowling. Of course, I beat her because I'm not going to let my kids beat me in anything. But we had fun bowling. And then we were able to, after that, go and get some ice cream. So it was a great day. And then actually it was fun that evening. We were able to, both my son and my daughter had their first time doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My son is 8 and my daughter's 5. And I do jiu-jitsu a couple times a week. And basically it's kind of wrestling on the ground where you're trying to do like arm bars and choke people out. Sounds pretty aggressive, but really it's like human chess, using your body to get in specific positions to try to submit your opponent. And we thought it would be great to get the kids involved in it for self-confidence and just, especially with my daughter, just self-defense, being able to take care of yourself. So it was great seeing them put in the effort, doing something that's really, really hard, something that's new, and it really builds character because it's really hard to begin with, but then as you do it, as you practice it, you get better and better. So it was great to spend that daddy-daughter day and then see my kids taking their first step into something that's difficult but can be very rewarding. And why that's important is that it was just a good family day. And that's really what we talk about on the Chris Berry Show, is just planning and protecting your family. Doing things to put yourself in the best position to take care of your family. And so it was rewarding to spend that day. So hopefully you had something positive that happened this week. And so with that, today on today's episode of the Chris Berry Show, we're going to do a couple things. So in our next segment, we're going to bring on Andrew CO. And Andrew, he's an insurance specialist. And we're going to talk about protecting your family, your family from an insurance perspective. We're going to talk about things like umbrella policies, different types of coverages that you should have, auto policies, some myths and misconceptions with regards to insurance. We're going to cover that on our second segment today. And then the third segment, we're going to get into some of the questions that our listeners have submitted. So if you do have a question that you want us to address on air, please give us a call at 810-355-2584. Again, 810-355-2584. Or shoot us an email anytime at askchris askchris@thechrisberryshow.com. Again, askchris@thechrisberryshow.com. So if you do have any questions, you can submit them that way, and we'll get to answering some of those questions in our third segment today. And we have a lot of good questions. It seems like a lot of the questions this week are revolving around the home and planning for the house, which for a lot of people, along with a retirement account, can be their largest asset. And so a lot of times families want to protect that home, make sure it avoids probate, make sure it goes to the people that it's supposed to go to. So we'll get into your questions on the third segment. And then, like I said, on the second segment, we're going to have Andrew talking about insurance. And one of the things that we're going to talk about in the next segment is a situation that happened to some of my good friends who ended up, they were my neighbors, our children played together. But they ended up moving to Arizona, and they hired a moving company to help them move all of their stuff from Arizona. But unfortunately, the moving company actually stole all their stuff. They loaded it up in the truck, and it never arrived in Arizona. And they were contacted then by the FBI because apparently this is a big scam going on. And I actually just saw another article by Channel 4 where they were outlining kind of the scam that's going around with moving companies right now. So Andrew's going to talk a little bit about that, but if you listen to the last episode, we got into some good detail about the issues and the things you can protect yourself, or things you can do to protect yourself from scams like that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that on our second segment. We're going to bring Andrew on to talk about some insurance-related things that you can do to protect your family. And then actually next week, we're going to do more we're going to dive deeper into insurance, talk about the different types of insurance, such as life insurance, medical insurance, long-term care insurance, really doing the things that you need to do or things you need to think about to protect your family. So we're going to dive deeper into insurance next week as well. But this week we're going to have Andrew on talking about property and casualty insurance, the need for umbrella policies, things to think about with your home or auto. And we're going to have Andrew's contact information in the show notes. So if you do have a question for Andrew, you can submit that to him via phone number or email. So that'll be our second segment. And then next week, we're going to dive deeper into insurance, different types of insurance, life insurance, long-term care insurance, health insurance, etc. So some other things that are coming up next week. I'm actually going to be out of the office for a couple days because I'm traveling to Chicago for an event that's called a Strategic Coach. And what it is it gets a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs in the same room talking about things to make sure our business runs as smoothly as possible and just bounce ideas off each other. And I'm a big fan of education. I've probably about a month out of a year, I'm out of the office trying to learn the best in strategies for planning for the second half of life to make the business run as efficiently as possible to best help our clients. So traveling to Chicago for next week for a couple days, I'll be out of the office, just kind of sharpening the saw. A big believer in continually improving, continually make sure that we're providing the best service to our clients possible. And then also next week, we have another one of our workshops, and we have these workshops about once a week. And last week, we were in Livonia and had a couple listeners from the radio show RSVP and show up for our workshop last week, so that was great to see. But next week, next Friday actually, at our Brighton office, we're going to have a free workshop where we talk about legal, financial, and tax planning for the second half of life. So if you like the information you hear on the Chris Berry Show and you want to see me in person, make sure that I don't have a face that's just made for radio, you can RSVP for one of our workshops. So next Friday at 2 p.m. at our Brighton office, we're going to have a free workshop entitled Legal, Financial, and Tax Planning for the Second Half of Life. Learn how to protect your family in 3 easy steps. And if that is something that you want to register for, then please give us a call at 810-355-2584 or shoot us an email at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com, or you can go online to thechrisberryshow.com and click through and you can register online. Now, seating is limited for these workshops. You do need to RSVP. And so please make sure to do so, because we can only fit about 20 to 24 people in these workshops. And usually we have nearly a full workshop. So please do, if you are interested in learning more about the things that we talk about on the Chris Berry Show, register for that workshop. It's going to be at our Brighton office next week, and it's going to be Friday at 2 p.m. And we're right on Grand River, right next to ABC Warehouse and Red Robin if you are in the Brighton area. And last week we had a great workshop in Livonia, and typically we do these about once a week at our different locations, whether it's Bloomfield Hills, Brighton, Novi, or Livonia. So next week we're going to be at our main office at our Brighton office for that workshop. So, again, we had a couple listeners from the radio show up, so feel free to join us next Friday. And so I was thinking I'd share a little bit about some client experiences this past week, some things that we were reviewing with clients. And one of the things that I was sitting down with an individual who was a retired Detroit police officer, great guy. Sounds like he has a great family. But one of the things we talked about was just his experience in working with different advisors. How when he retired from the police force, he had an individual that worked with a lot of the retirees on the financial planning. And so he went with him because a lot of his friends and fellow retirees went with him as a financial planner. But he expressed that he had a very bad experience with this individual, that they're charging excessive fees and that it seems like his investments were going up, but then the fees were eating up all of the gains that he was experiencing in his retirement accounts. And so he had a bad taste from that. And so he ended up moving his money to a family member, his brother-in-law, who sold him an annuity that didn't seem to actually make sense afterwards. And he felt like he got burned by that brother-in-law and ended up really caused some issues with the family because of just the bad investment advice he was getting from his brother-in-law. And so that's one of the things that I think separates what we do at our firm, is that as a practicing attorney and advisor, I'm always have to do what is in my client's best interest, versus a lot of these financial professionals, quote unquote, they might only have what's called a suitability standard, meaning that they don't necessarily need to do what's best for the client. They just need to sell the individual something that is suitable, versus my role as an attorney and a planner. I owe a fiduciary responsibility to act in my client's best interest. So it would be similar to if you were walking into a butcher shop, let's say, and the butcher has to sell you a piece of meat that's suitable for you, right? But my role would be more like a dietitian, saying that, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be walking into that butcher shop. Maybe you should be going and getting a salad, right? So it's important to understand the different types of responsibility, whether someone's a true fiduciary acting in a client's best interest, or they just have what's called a suitability standard. And it can be very confusing. And I was talking to another client about this who had a bad experience with an attorney. They used their free legal services through a work plan where they paid into it each month a very small fee, but then they're entitled to free legal services. And the person held themselves out as an expert in elder law and estate planning, but what they received really wasn't up to the level of an expert. And the planning and the documents they received really weren't as good as they could have been. And so it's really tough to understand or recognize expertise out there. And so that's why one of our main approach is really an educational approach, to educate our clients on what's good planning and bad planning, and educate them on the options, so that once they're well educated, they can make intelligent decisions in their best interest, versus me just telling you what to do. So it's important to understand kind of how to find quality professionals. So look for expertise. Don't look for a general planner, because this planning for the second half of life, it's complicated. There's a lot of nuances that go into it. So make sure you are working with your expert. Don't just use your next door neighbor or your friend from church or that family friend that does a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You want true expertise when it comes to planning for the second half of life. And speaking of expertise, on our next segment, so stick with us after the break, we're going to have Andrew CEO, who's really an expert when it comes to insuring your family from life happening, from those slips and falls, from those auto accidents. And we're going to spend some time talking about umbrella policies. We're going to talk about how to maximize your homeowners and your auto insurance policy, because we want to make sure that your family is protected. And that's really the focus of our firm and the focus of the Chris Berry Show, is to make sure that you're properly protected. You've worked hard to build everything, build your wealth, and we want to make sure that we can protect it from life happening, protect it from unnecessary taxes, protect it from long-term care costs, protect it from market volatility. It's really about protection to make sure that your money lasts as long as you do. And so we're going to talk to Andrew on our next segment. And then in our third segment, we're going to get into some questions and answers. And if you do have a question, feel free to submit a question anytime by calling us at 810-355-2584 or shoot us an email at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com. And on the Chris Berry Show, we talk about wealth, estate, and tax planning for the second half of life. Please join me on the next segment, where we're going to bring Andrew on to talk about protecting your family. So learn the ins and outs of what to think about with your homeowner's policy, as well as your auto policy. And we're going to get into discussing umbrella policies. So join us after the break. I'll see you there.
The cost of care for an elderly loved one or a loved one with a chronic illness is shockingly expensive. If you are dealing with the unbelievable cost of care, make sure you get all the benefits you're entitled to. Here's certified elder law attorney Chris Berry from the Elder Care Firm in Brighton.
Most of my clients are really concerned about long-term care costs. They don't know where to turn, and what we can do is put together legal strategies to protect your resources and also bring in additional resources to help pay that cost of care. One of the things that they often say is that I wish I knew about this years prior. And unfortunately, the information's out there, but there's just so few certified elder law attorneys. As the only certified elder law attorney in Livingston County, it's my job to make sure that our seniors, our loved ones, our veterans have the best quality of care possible and the best quality of life possible.
Protect your hard-earned assets from probate, long-term care costs, and the IRS. The Elder Care Firm will get you the governmental benefits you deserve, including veterans benefits and Medicaid. Visit theeldercarefirm.com and schedule a free 15-minute phone consultation. That's theeldercarefirm.com.
And welcome back to the Chris Berry Show, where we talk wealth, estate, and tax planning for the second half of life. And I'm excited to have a guest on. We don't always want to listen to my voice, but today we have an exciting guest on, Andrew CEO. And Andrew, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Good. So why don't you tell me a little bit how you got into the insurance business?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I was up at Michigan State studying economics.
Go green.
Go green, go white. Absolutely. So sorry for the U of M listeners out there. But so upon graduation, jumped right into the insurance world. Obtained a few different licenses, probably like yourself, a couple other designations that I either have or I've been working on. And now I look back and it's been 12 years in the industry, the last 4 of which I've been on my own.
Sure. Great. Yeah. So you've been doing this for a while. What are some of the things that you've seen change since when you started?
It's an ever-changing world, probably like yours, based on legislation that's changing or just the world that we involve in. So, doing what we do on the home and auto side, right now you've got the Airbnbs and VRBOs of the world, people sharing their houses, people sharing their cars, people earning an income 9 to 5, but also driving around in their Lyfts and Ubers and, using it for occupational purposes. So, ever-changing world, and nowadays you got those things flying around recording things like drones, and that opens up a whole new Pandora's box as well.
Yeah, and why don't we start with drones? I actually got my children a couple drones or a drone last year. They ended up getting it stuck in the tree, and then we had to get another drone because that one was stuck in the tree. And then we put them away for winter time. We recently broke them back out. So what do I need to know about drones with regards to insurance?
Well, it sounds like we're in the wrong business because that's a good recurring revenue if you keep breaking them or flying them away in the wind. But no, drones pose kind of two distinct different issues or things that need to be addressed. One is potential physical damage, right? So if they flew that into a house or into a farm field or something of that nature. We had a client last year that was at a wedding, and thank goodness the photographer flew it into their own assistant. But, all of a sudden there was blood gushing from their head because of those, blades. Now imagine if that was the bride, right? And all that red was on a white dress. So, so there's the physical damage aspect of things, but also the liability. You start flying those around neighborhoods and you get accusations of people, saying that you're a peeping Tom or, that you're recording some information that shouldn't be recorded. So there's also the liability aspect of it. So they're fun. I hate to take away from that aspect of things, and the kids use them obviously for good reasons. And there's some cool things you can do with film and all of that. But, from my boring perspective, you have to be concerned about the liability and the physical damage that can be caused from them.
Interesting. So is that something that's covered just by your standard homeowner's insurance, or is it a separate coverage? Or
unfortunately, it is not. Now, you could potentially schedule it on your homeowner's coverage, as far as an electronic device, but that liability is kind of on its own. So there are actually specific carriers and specific policies designed for drone use, and you're seeing a lot more specific coverages for specific risks, especially in this field.
Yeah, that's interesting because if you go back 10 years, drone insurance would not be the thing we're thinking about talking
or
about today.
Phone insurance, anything of that nature.
Sure. Yeah. So kind of speaking of kind of home insurance, we brought up a situation of my friends who moved out of town. They were moving from Michigan to Arizona. They hired a moving company, but unfortunately the moving company they hired was participating in a scam and racketeering. And unfortunately, my friends heard from the FBI first that all of their personal belongings were lost. What are the things that they could have done? Is this something covered by homeowner's insurance?
Yeah, great question. Unfortunately, not all of it would be covered under a standard homeowner's policy. The homeowner's policy is written for a specific address, and unless things are scheduled, oftentimes it doesn't extend coverage. Now, that being said, typically what you'll see is about a 10% extension from the homeowner's policy. So, if they had $200,000 worth of personal property, that's really a drop in the bucket at maybe $20,000 of coverage. I would say my best recommendation is to do some proactive vetting of the companies, right? So that just goes to a personal risk management type status, looking at the Better Business Bureau, getting some references and referrals. Obviously, that's not fail-safe and always going to help you, but I think that's probably the best first step because ultimately you're going to rely on that company and what insurance policies they have. And if they weren't so fraudulent, right, you'd hope that there'd be a theft coverage in place if it was just a couple employees acting out on their own. Otherwise, there's a bailee's coverage, which a lot of our auto body shops or other moving companies might have, which says that if you're in care, custody, control of someone's property and it's damaged or lost or something of that nature, then that policy extends. But my guess is that company, if they're truly involved to that level, there's not a policy to rely on.
Interesting. And so there wouldn't be, I know there's all kinds of different insurances out there, but there wouldn't like travel insurance. So there wouldn't be something of, okay, I'm hiring a company to move my stuff out of state. I want to ensure that company is actually going to deliver it. That'd have to be provided by the company. There's nothing for the individual in that situation.
I have to be honest with you. I haven't had this situation arise with any of our clients.
Sure.
My guess is that when you rent a Hertz rent-a-car or something like that, there's an optional coverage, but obviously that's only as good as the people that are holding the paperwork. But I would imagine if I were to do a quick research, there are some alternative third-party carriers that would write that risk because really it shouldn't happen very often. But I'm guaranteeing there's a market out there for it.
Sure, yeah, there's a market out there for everything. Doesn't J-Lo have her butt insured?
Yeah, from what I've heard, I didn't write that policy, but I would be curious to read the declaration pages.
Sure, yeah. So speaking of kind of reviewing policies for what it covers, what are the things that people should be looking for in their homeowner's policy?
Absolutely. I mean, we're just looking, anytime we sit down with clients or provide a review of any sort, is just for accuracy for their policy for their needs. So often, when you think about let's say the homeowner's policy, we're looking at, hey, what's the dwelling? Does that match up with the current reconstruction costs, labor and materials that would have to go into a scenario where, heaven forbid, they have a partial or whole loss? The second part of that really is the liability, that coverage kind of E and F to it. So, do their current assets or their future potential assets, are those covered by the liability extension? And then there's always different changing worlds. So you talked about, hey, what new policies are available? It's not necessarily a new policy, but endorsements on the policy. Jewelry and gold and diamond prices continue to go up. So making sure that we have accurate appraisals there and accurate coverage on those items, as well as a personal injury type extension, right? We've both got kids. I don't know if yours are on social media yet, but ours both will be soon. And, we're liable for everything that they say, type, libel, slander, defamation of character, and so forth. And so that really broadens that personal liability that we have out there. So really my goal is to make sure that we have, the right policy for the right risk and for the right client. And ultimately, it's hard for someone to go online, kind of like a legal Zoom, and pick and choose their own stuff, right? Because ultimately they're going to typically drag that ticker down to a low premium, and they don't really cover themselves. So a lot of it is just case-by-case basis, walking them through, hey, what do you have? What do you own? What do you want to cover? What do you want to achieve? What check are you comfortable writing? Because in one of my courses I just recently took, they say everything's covered. It's just whether you're paying for it or the carrier's paying for it. So, it just depends.
Yeah. And what are... And I know you do both personal as well as businesses. If you're a business owner, what are the things that you should be looking for in terms of your coverage?
Goodness. Commercial is a whole different animal. We do specialize in it and have a dedicated department for it. And really you're exacerbating or multiplying the issues that can arise, right? Instead of a 200,000 square foot or, instead of a $2,000 home, let me say that again, 2,000 square foot home, you're talking about a 200 square foot, 2,200 square foot. Geez, oh, Pete, 200,000 square foot building. Yeah. You're talking about multiple employees with the needs for workers' comp insurance. You're talking about maybe some employees that like to host some parties or some celebrations, and so there's host liquor liability issues. You've got parts or equipment or inventory that's going in transit, right? So we talked about the homeowner's policy not extending for your friends, but you have people that are regularly driving employees across states, driving inventory across states, delivering it, and what those delivery requirements look like. It's just a totally different animal. You've got a litigious society out there, so you've got the employer practices liability aspect that we have to be concerned about, professional liability, both in your world and my world, or in a doctor's world with malpractice, or pizza can go on and on and on in the commercial world. So where to even start, I don't know.
Yeah. So obviously this isn't something you should just try to find online, especially if you're a business owner. How do people know how to find kind of the right insurance agent for them?
Obviously I could give myself a quick plug, but, I would say those who like, and trust, maybe other associates in the similar industry, find out who they're working with, find out, how long they've been working with them, would they refer them? And that's always an excellent referral, right? I'm sure you receive a lot of your business from kind of the same means. If you've provided some successful solutions for people, hopefully you can mirror that for others. So I would say that's a great place to start, especially because with the broad scope of commercial, right, there's different industries, there's different nuances. If I'm an expert, in HVAC or electrical or doctors or something, I can ask the right questions and get the right answers and provide the right coverages. If it's the first time I've ever looked into that business, not to say I can't do a good job, but you might miss some things. So I'd say that's a good start.
Sure, yeah. And I know one thing and we've worked together many times, and I would be happy to refer to you. So why don't you, in fact, plug yourself, if you don't mind. How can people get a hold of you?
Absolutely, I appreciate it. So Andrew CEO, and it's we talked about this earlier. It's a goofy last name. It's CEO. And I'm with the CO Wilson Insurance Group. We primarily represent Farm Bureau Insurance. The office number is 810-231-9757, or my email address, aceo@fbinsmi.com. thechrisberryshow.com.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll have all that information in the show notes. So if you go to thechrisberryshow.com, you'll see Andrew's contact information. Feel free to shoot him an email or give him a call anytime. And one of the things that I think is super important, and I always refer to you as my go-to person, is umbrella insurance. Can you talk a little bit about what umbrella insurance is and why it's so important?
Absolutely. So umbrella insurance, whether personal or commercial, is just an additional policy with additional liability coverage. So let's say I have a home and autos and other toys like boats and jet skis and so forth. This is an additional policy usually sold in increments of $1 million, so whether it's $1 million, $3 million, $5 million umbrella that adds additional liability to all the underlying policies. Again, with it being a litigious society out there, we're recommending umbrellas more and more. And as far as when they're applicable, I can make the argument to, hey, if you're 65, you've amassed your estate, you're kind of at the end of the income earning potential, right? You never want to take a step backwards. That would be a great opportunity to look at and secure an umbrella policy. However, on the other side of the spectrum, if I'm talking to a 25-year-old that is very degreed up, educated, has some good income potential, I can make the argument to why they want to protect their income for the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Especially if they're a little bit immature, make poor life choices.
We were all there not too long ago. So absolutely.
Sure.
And I would say, as far as a broad brushstroke, anytime someone has more people or more things, it just begs the argument to why they need an umbrella.
Sure.
If you're a socialite and like to have parties for you, the kids, you have boats, jet skis, you have second homes, et cetera, the more things, the more people, the more reason why. And the more youthful drivers you have out there, for sure, the more reason why.
Sure. And how would you go about calculating the right amount of umbrella policy?
That's always a great question. When we talk about liability, there's no magic number. There's no, hey, Chris, I know exactly how much you're going to be sued for when you get sued and if you get sued, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who tells you they know that, I'd probably walk the other way. Mm-hmm. But usually a good rule of thumb is trying to assess what assets they have or will have in the near future. That'll help us gauge what type of liability limits they should have, and then if an umbrella is important to them and how much they should have.
Sure, great. Now, kind of changing gears a little bit, what are some of the things when you're reviewing people's policy? Well, let me ask you this. How often should people review their policy, and what are the issues you see?
I don't know if it's necessary to review it every 6 months. I'd say, every year to 2 years, it's always good to, at minimum, have a conversation, right? Because life changes. Kids cusp that driving age, or you acquire some new jewelry within the household at an anniversary, or you put on a deck, or you remodel the basement or throw on a roof. It could be, hey, we need to increase coverages, but it also may be an opportunity for credit. So I would say you should be having a conversation at minimum every year. And then be proactive. If you know you're making some big life changes, reach out to your insurance agent and have a conversation with them. Let them guide you to say, is it worth moving some things around, changing some things, scheduling things, or, hey, check the box, we're good, same old, same old.
Sure, yeah. And one of the things I've heard with regards to auto liability, Michigan's a no-fault state, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So something sometimes people bring up is, why should I carry more than just the minimum?
Absolutely great question. So, you and I can't sue each other if we, bump into each other in the parking lot for the physical damage of the vehicles. That's where the auto no-fault regulations come into play. However, the common misconception is that you cannot be sued, and that is far from the truth. People can be sued for death, disfigurement, pain, anguish, loss of wages, and many other things. And I don't know about you, but I don't really have a great definition for what's pain and anguish and what would fall into that category. Sure. And some of the case law that comes across the table is pretty interesting, to say the least. So for all those reasons, you want to make sure that you're properly protected.
Wonderful. And I appreciate you sharing all this information with the listeners of the Chris Berry Show. One more time, what's the phone number and email that they can reach you at?
Absolutely. That is 810-231-9757. That's the C.O. Wilson Insurance Group. And the email address is aceo@fbinsmi.com.
Oh, Andrew, thanks so much for sharing all this information. And again, if you need that contact information, it's going to be in the show notes. You can go to thechrisberryshow.com. We'll get all of that information. And then on the next segment, what we're going to get into is some of the questions and answers that listeners have submitted. And if you do have any insurance questions, feel free to go to thechrisberryshow.com, where you'll see Andrew's contact information. Please give him a call, and he'll be happy to follow up with any answers, potentially. And so with that, please join us next segment as we get into the listeners' questions. And if you do have any questions, you can always email us at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com. Or, and that's probably one of the best ways to do it, is email us at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com. Andrew, thanks a bunch. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
The cost of long-term care can be overwhelming. If you're dealing with long-term care costs, make plans to attend the next free informative workshop from the Elder Care Firm in Brighton. They'll show you how to protect your hard-earned assets and obtain the governmental benefits you deserve, including veterans benefits and Medicaid.
Hello, I'm attorney Chris Berry. As the only certified elder law attorney in Livingston County, I have the knowledge and estate planning strategies to help you. When you call, reserve your seat at our next workshop or schedule a free 15-minute phone consultation. The Elder Care Firm is here to help you and your family find solutions. Call us today.
Spots are filling up for the next free Elder Care Firm workshop. Reserve your seat today by calling 810-214-3800 or visit theeldercarefirm.com. The Elder Care Firm also invites you to join them at this year's Walk to End Alzheimer's. The Remembrance Night is on September 20th, and the walk is on Saturday, October 1st in downtown Brighton. Call 810-214-3800 today.
And welcome back to the Chris Berry Show. So hopefully you enjoyed our last segment where we had Andrew CO discussing insurance and how to protect and insure your family, talking about umbrella policies, etc. So now what we're going to do is get into the question and answer portion of the Chris Berry Show. So if you do have a question, you can submit a question to us anytime, or if you want to see the show in person, so to speak, and join us at one of our upcoming workshops where we talk wealth, estate, and tax planning for the second half of life, give us a call at 810-355-2584 to get some more information and register for one of our upcoming workshops. Or you can go online to thechrisberryshow.com, click through, and you'll be able to see a list of our upcoming workshops and then also register. So if you do like the information or want to ask a question in person and get a real live answer, please attend one of our upcoming workshops. So now let's get into the questions submitted by our listeners. And so the first one is from Meg. And Meg asks, what is the best way to transfer land out of my mother's name to me? Well, the answer I'm going to have to give you, Meg, to this is what we learned in our first year of law school, to answer every question with it depends. Really don't have all the facts here. There's different ways that we could do it. But a lot of times what we utilize is something called a ladybird deed. It's a ladybird deed. So what a ladybird deed is a deed that says it's in your name while you're alive, and then when you pass away, it goes to whoever you've named as a beneficiary on that. So your mom, if she's, assuming she's still alive here, she could do a ladybird deed that says it's in mom's name while she's alive. She can sell it if she wants to. But then if she passes away without having sold the property, then it transfers directly to you, thereby avoiding probate. So that might be the best way to do it. We might want to deed it instead to a trust, but typically a lot of times we're using a ladybird deed unless we're setting up an asset protection trust. So I'm guessing you probably want to explore the idea of a ladybird deed, and that's something that, of course, we could help you with if you needed assistance with that. So hopefully that was helpful for you, Meg. And like I said at the beginning of the show, a lot of these seem to be revolving around homes. So everyone wants to plan properly for the home. So our next question is from Jennifer. And Jennifer writes in, married, deed in husband's name, no will, no trust, etc. If husband dies, is wife entitled to the house? And actually, I was sitting with a client this week, same exact situation, only this time it was in the wife's name. So here's the situation. We have husband and wife. Husband has the property. Maybe he bought it ahead of time and then they got married afterwards. Regardless, the home is just in husband's name. So what happens if husband passes away? Does it just automatically go to the wife? Well, the answer is no, because it has to go through probate. And we've talked about this before on the Chris Berry Show in one of our previous shows of how assets pass out of your name when you pass away, or get out of your name when you pass away. And really, there's only 4 ways assets can transfer out of your name. The first way would be through joint ownership. So for a lot of married couples, that's how the real estate is handled. There'll be husband and wife are joint on the property. And so when husband passes away, it goes to the wife. But that's not the situation here. It's just in husband's name. The second way would be through beneficiary designations. So if you have a life insurance policy, whoever you've named as a beneficiary, it would pass to that person. And that's really kind of what a ladybird deed is. It's almost like a beneficiary designation for your home. And then third would be through a trust. So you could have an asset protection trust like a castle trust, or you could have a basic revocable living trust. And there's lots of other types of trusts as well, but those are the most common. So if the home was titled in the name of the trust, it would pass to whoever the beneficiary is. But if an asset doesn't pass through joint ownership, beneficiary designation, trust, then it ends up going into probate. And that's what we want to try to avoid. So in this situation, for Jennifer, she's married to her husband, but the house is just in the husband's name. So if husband passes away, what's going to happen is that home will end up going through probate, which is a 5-month process at least in Michigan. There's court fees and sometimes attorney fees and publication fees and inventory fees. And also, with probate, Jennifer might not get the entire value of the house. If there are children, they might be entitled to a share as well. So it would just end up being a mess that could easily be avoided by having maybe joint ownership on that property. So again, maybe using a ladybird deed to say that it's in husband's name and Jennifer's name, and then if both of them pass away, it goes to the children or the beneficiaries. So I'd get that handled pretty quick. Make sure that if husband passes away, it doesn't end up going in probate. It goes to whoever it's supposed to go, and maybe utilize a ladybird deed. So there you go, Jennifer. Now we're going to get into our third question. And this question is, how should my 529 be balanced if my kids are 2 years away from college? And this was from John. My daughter is 2 years from starting college. How should my 529 account be balanced? I have almost enough to pay for 4 years of school, including my other savings account. Should it all be in money market accounts? Should any portion be in stock and bond funds? Well, this is a question that's dear to my heart. My children are 8 and 5 right now, so I still have some time. But you have to have a plan to pay for college, and I see both of this in my work and my personal life. It seems like there's two expenses that are shooting up, rocketing up faster than just your average cost of living. And those two things are long-term care costs and college costs. So you need to have a plan for both. And John, sounds like you've done a great job. You're almost near that finish line of being able to pay for your daughter's education. And it's great that you used a tax-free or a type of asset class that grows tax-free. A 529, if you're unfamiliar with it, you use after-tax money to put it into this 529 account, and then the growth on that, so any gains, you get tax-free so that you can take that money out tax-free to pay for college education. And that's a great way to pay for college. And each state has its own 529 plan, and I think that could be a whole separate show of choosing the correct 529 plan. But the 529 is a great savings vehicle for college education. A lot of times I like to couple that with looking at maybe a permanent life insurance policy, because one of the downsides of the 529 is that if the market goes down, you could lose the value of that 529. So a good permanent, maybe an index universal life insurance policy is also a good hedge to get tax-free growth that you could use the cash value to then pay for college education, which maybe should be its own show entirely, is paying for college. But sounds like we just have a 529 here. So what I would do if I were you, John, with this 529 is try to basically utilize the bucket plan that we've talked about on previous episodes of the Chris Berry Show. So the bucket plan, the way it works is a way to organize how you're going to utilize your funds. So we have 3 buckets, and the first bucket is what we call the now bucket. So this is money that you're going to utilize within the next year. Might be your income, any planned expenses, for example, college, as well as emergency funds. So this money should be safe, liquid, maybe checking, savings, money market. So you're almost in that now bucket where you almost should be out of the market. Because if we do have a 2008 happening again, and the value of of your equities goes down 40%, well, you're going to be in a very different position in terms of utilizing these expenses or utilizing the money to pay for college. And so you don't want to have all your money in the market. And so continuing with that bucket plan, most people have that later bucket. So you have your now bucket and your later bucket. And this later bucket is money that we think we're going to utilize maybe 10 years from today. Because if the market goes up or down, typically over time it does go up. But 10 years gives you some time to weather that volatility. So with your daughter being about 2 years away from college, basically I would put that money in the now as well as the soon bucket. So it should be safe, conservative, liquid. I'd try to get a majority of that maybe out of equities, out of the stock market, and focus more on bonds and money market. Be as basically as conservative as possible, because you're not looking for any big growth. Now you want to preserve that, because it sounds like you've about reached the finish line. And so congratulations to you to paying your daughter's college education. That's important. That's something that my parents were able to do for me. That's something that I look forward to doing for my children as well. So again, I would be as conservative as possible. You're 2 years away. You don't want that money invested in the market where if the market goes down, you've lost 40% of the savings. So congratulations, John. You're well on your way. Now, for our next question, again, getting back to the real estate, seems like a lot of real estate related questions this week. So this is from Peter. If both my name and my brother's name are on a condo and he has to go into a nursing home, do I have to sell the condo? Peter asks. My brother is currently suffering with dementia, and it's just a matter of time before he will have nursing home arrangements. Both of our names are on the condo, and I was wondering, do I need to put the condo in a trust to protect the nursing home from attempting to seize all of his or our assets? So this is one of the things that we caution people about is joint ownership. Joint ownership is great for a married couple, but I would not recommend naming anyone else jointly on your accounts or your assets, specifically for this reason. So Peter, for whatever reason, has named his brother as a co-owner of his condo. Maybe it was an estate planning idea to avoid probate. But now his brother will be needing long-term care. So really the question becomes in this situation with your brother's dementia diagnosis is how much time do we think we have before he gets to the point of needing long-term care in a nursing home? So if we think we might have 5 years or more before your brother gets to that point, then what I would recommend is that you set up an asset protection trust, for example, a castle trust, which is a form of asset protection trust. Move that condo into the trust. And then the thing that happens is that if you can make it 5 years from the time that you move the assets into the trust, then that's going to be protected from that nursing home or Medicaid spend down. And Medicaid is a governmental program we've talked about on this show before. And Medicaid will pay your nursing home care, but a single individual can only have $2,000 worth of countable assets, and the home is an exempt asset. But in this situation, with it being joint with your brother, if your brother needs long-term care, only one home is exempt. So if your brother has any real estate of his own, then that house is not going to be an exempt asset. So it would be important to move that asset into an asset protection trust like a castle trust with the hope that your brother can make it 5 years before he needs nursing home care. Now, understand that not all trusts protect against that nursing home or Medicaid spend down. So if you have a basic revocable living trust, that actually does not protect against nursing home or Medicaid spend down. Again, a living trust, a basic revocable living trust, does not start that 5-year clock ticking for Medicaid or nursing home protection. You need to have an asset protection trust like a castle trust. So again, a revocable trust does not protect against that nursing home or Medicaid spend down. A lot of people think it does, but it does not. What a revocable trust does is avoids probate and controls the distribution upon death. You need to look to a castle trust or an asset protection trust if you do want to start that 5-year clock ticking for Medicaid purposes. Now, if we don't have 5 years, so let's say Peter's brother is nearing the point of needing nursing home care now, then I need some more facts to really make the best recommendation possible. Because if your brother has another piece of property, has multiple assets, then we're going to have to look at what we call Medicaid crisis planning, where we might be able to protect half of the assets. But if your brother doesn't have any other pieces of real estate, then one of the things we could do would be a ladybird deed, because the home is actually an exempt asset while you're alive. But Michigan, since 2011, has had a state recovery where they can place a lien on the home to recover basically any cost of care that the Medicaid has been paying out in benefits. But that's only for assets that end up going into probate. So if we were to do a ladybird deed, the ladybird deed avoids that estate recovery. But we can only do that for the primary residence. So for your brother to qualify for Medicaid, if he does need nursing home care soon, and we do want to protect your condo, then hopefully he doesn't have any other pieces of property and we can do a ladybird deed, because the home is exempt, and then it avoids estate recovery because the ladybird deed avoids probate. But again, this is kind of a tough position because of the joint ownership. And one of the things we stress is joint ownership is great for a married couple, but we don't recommend naming anyone else jointly on any accounts or assets. And this is one of those reasons why. I actually had this come up previously with a client where mom had named her daughter joint on a piece of real estate, and then daughter ended up needing long-term care before mom did. And so they were going to come after that home. And luckily, we were able to, through Medicaid crisis planning, try to protect that home. And it's a complicated process, and I don't have time to go over it today. But understand that there are things that we can do in terms of protecting against long-term care costs, even at the last minute. But it's much better to try to plan ahead. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, Peter. It's going to be a little bit of a complicated answer depending on some of those facts. So if you do want more information, hey, what I'd recommend is maybe attend one of our free workshops where we talk about wealth, estate, and tax planning for the second half of life. And if you do want to register for one of our workshops, they occur about once a week at one of our Metro Detroit offices. Give us a call at 810-355-2584 or shoot us an email at askchris@thechrisberryshow.com. Or you can go to our website, thechrisberryshow.com, click through and register online. And so it was great talking to you this week. Join us next week as we talk more about insurance. Make it a great week. Thank you.
Learn more about Chris Berry and the Elder Care Firm by visiting online at michiganestateplanning.com. That's michiganestateplanning.com. You can also call Chris Berry at 888-390-4360. 888-390-4360. This program content reflects the opinions of Chris Berry and his guests, not the Elder Care Firm, Prosperity Capital Advisors, or the C.J. Berry Group, and is subject to change at any time without notice. Content provided herein is for informational purposes only and should not be used or construed as investment or legal advice or a recommendation regarding the purchase or sale of any security or to follow any legal or tax strategy. There's no guarantee that the strategist's statements, opinions, or forecast provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses, which would reduce returns. All investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There's no guarantee that any investment plan or strategy will be successful. We recommend that you consult with a professional dedicated to your needs. This program is furnished by the Elder Care Firm.
The cost of long-term care can be overwhelming. If you're dealing with long-term care costs, make plans to attend the next free informative workshop from the Elder Care Firm in Brighton. They'll show you how to protect your hard-earned assets and obtain the governmental benefits you deserve, including veterans benefits and Medicaid.
Hello, I'm attorney Chris Berry. As the only certified elder law attorney in Livingston County, I have the knowledge and estate planning strategies to help you. When you call, reserve your seat at our next workshop or schedule a free 15-minute phone consultation. The Elder Care Firm is here to help you and your family find solutions. Call us today.
Spots are filling up for the next free Elder Care Firm workshop. Reserve your seat today by calling 810-214-3800 or visit theeldercarefirm.com. The Elder Care Firm also invites you to join them at this year's Walk to End Alzheimer's. The walk is on Saturday, October 1st in downtown Brighton. Call 810-214-3800 today.